Thaddeus McCotter, my co-host, colleague, and friend, WJR, the great voice of the Great Lakes, and we're joined by Gordon Chang, whose new piece at World Affairs looks at China, the third era of China, which Gordon proposes in a stark headline is the end of reform and growth and stability. Therefore, ergo, Gordon, a very good evening to you. Mao Zedong, we were just discussing the Nixon goes to China moments of 1972. I understand Mao got out of a sickbed to greet the President of the United States with his false face. Mao Zedong's picture still hangs everywhere for Xi Jinping, the billionaire, and his gang of 90 or whatever it is, all the billionaires that attend the People's Congress. They have lost their sense of legitimacy to the revolution. They never had a sense of legitimacy to the people. I cannot think of a revolution that ended with stability and then liberal democracy. It ends with stability, violence, and unpredictability lasting for decades. Is that where we're going with China, Gordon?
Well, certainly. You know, because everyone says that the history of the People's Republic can be divided into two sections. One dominated by Mao, the other by his successor, Deng Xiaoping. But really, China has now passed into a third period, and this is one of instability, certainly very, very little growth, and probably no growth in the future, and certainly one of belligerence and hostility to other countries. And so this is a new China. We have to understand what's going on, and it's not going to be good, as you suggest.
Thaddeus?
When you say not going to be good, Gordon, can you just kind of give us a quick look into the future of how bad it is going to be?
Well, you know, what we see right now is Beijing lashing out, not just at the United States, not just at India, not just Vietnam. What we're seeing is China lashing out, and that betrays a lack of strategic thinking. And it means that Chinese leaders are now acting according to a logic that the rest of the world is not familiar with. So we see this ring of problems from India in the south to South Korea in the north, China taking on the United States and the international community. So that's the problem. And this is going to get worse because the political distress in Beijing is going to get worse.
Gordon, violence, state coercion is answered by violence. Is there a faction in China that could launch that violence? Could the army turn on the party, or could some element of the army rise up and take the apparatus?
Well, that's what the civilian leaders in the Communist Party are worried about, because we have seen them demand from the flag officers, the generals and the admirals, these oaths of loyalty. Not just one of them, but about 3 or 4 of them so far this year. We have seen so many releases from state media talking about the dominance of the party over the army. These are the things that you hear when there really is a problem of loyalty in the senior ranks. And especially if things go very badly inside of China, which I think they will, we could see some general or admiral deciding that they should be the ones ruling China, or that the army in general should actually be there to restore order because the civilians won't be able to. So any of these scenarios are possible.
Thaddeus?
Gordon, when we talk about that type of outcome, it sounds more and more like the internal instability is not going to drive a particularly, shall we say, revolutionary political movement or spawn one, such as Mao's movement was spawned out of the countryside. It sounds just simply like more like a South American junta on the horizon, doesn't it?
Well, it certainly does. And, you know, there's these big arguments among China watchers about whether China is fascist or not. And this argument can go on forever, depending on what you think fascism is. But clearly, you do have not a communist revolution right now, but you do have sort of this corporatist state. You see basically a mafia state, some people say. But clearly, there is a very, very different type of government than the one that the Chinese people sort of intended when they got rid of Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong took over China. So this is a very, very different sort of system, and it's one that Chinese people don't like. They have to tolerate it because they don't have the ability to get rid of it, but they don't believe that it really is legitimate, because Chinese people generally believe that a one-party state is no longer appropriate for a modern society like China.
Wen Jiabao turned on the massive infusion of capital that's propped up this bubble. He's still powerful, isn't he, Gordon? He still has a faction. Is it strong enough to challenge Xi Jinping?
No, I don't think so. Especially when is sort of gone into the background a little bit. Now, he is, of course, associated with Hu Jintao, the predecessor to Xi Jinping, the current ruler. And Hu Jintao also has sort of receded into the background, but he can come back out again. And the reason he might do that is because Xi Jinping is attacking Hu Jintao's patronage network.
Right.
And that is a problem. So Hu Jintao, who would probably prefer to go away, is going to have to defend himself. And this is going to cause problems in the senior ranks of the party.
Thaddeus?
Gordon, fascism and communism were really just intellectual pretexts for the usurpation and exercise of illegitimate state power. So, if you're correct, and I think you are, that the Chinese people believe that a one-party state is not appropriate for a 21st century society, what's going to happen if they get saddled with a military junta?
Well, they're not going to like that either, and that very well may be what the generals and admirals decide that they have to do. You know, there's so many different scenarios how this can play out, but when you have a communist party that has basically said that its legitimacy depends upon the continual delivery of prosperity, and when you no longer have that prosperity, it means the party basically has no legitimacy apart from nationalism, which means, unfortunately, picking on China's neighbors and the United States. And I don't think that the Communist Party, as powerful as it is, can take on both the Chinese people and all of its neighbors and the U.S. and the international community at the same time. So this is going to get extremely chaotic, turbulent, violent, and uncertain.
Gordon, let's have some fun. You write that Mao wanted to upend the international system. He was wrong. Can you say he's wrong, Gordon?
Oh, he's a mass murderer.
Yes.
He's probably responsible for more unnatural deaths than any other person in history.
Very liberating. Take the picture down, guys, then we'll talk. Gordon Chang of Forbes.com, Thaddeus McCotter of WJR, the great voice of the Great Lakes. I'm John Batchelor.